Tuesday, and as you know, at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, we do a video blog talking about real estate, talking about the strategies and all the processes that go into your actual transaction. We try to stay away from all the nuances of tip giving and that kind of thing. What we want to do is get into the actual meat of a transaction. And we talk about this in terms of strategy so that when you're thinking of buying or selling, that you sort of have a pretext of what's going to happen, what the process is. Obviously, there's a whole lot of information that we give that talks about exactly what to do in terms of the next steps, as I said in the intro. So we try to take 5 or 10 minutes of our time every Tuesday at 10 o'clock to talk about some of the things, some of the pitfalls, and some of the suggestion that I have as an 18-year veteran in the field to share with you about your strategies and moving forward in your buying and selling process. We do this every week. We do it, again, as I said, at 10 o'clock on Tuesdays. And this is Facebook Live, and the object of this particular blog is to not only just have me talk as a talking head for 5 or 10 minutes, but also include you. And, we just started this. This is our 5th blog. We're getting all the technical difficulties out of the way, getting a sense of how we would put this forward. And now that we're kind of getting our hands around all the technology and as such, we're getting more used to the ability to broadcast and get your questions answered. Really flubbing today. I've got so much on my mind. I guess I'm tripping over my own words. But let me just make this very easy by saying, please feel free to ask anything about real estate on this live blog, and I'll be happy to answer your questions and share with you. But that's the objective here. We really do want to share whatever your controversy is, whatever your problem is, or just whatever your approach is about getting involved in the real estate world. Please go ahead and make a comment or a question, and I'll be happy to answer. Today, as I said on the intro, there is so much information on the web that we've reached a point where people think that you can do just absolutely everything on the web when it comes to real estate purchasing or real estate selling. And I wanted to sort of tell you that basically for the last, I would say, probably 5 to 6 years, we now have people we realize are doing most of their homework about 3 months out and all of it online before they even contact a realtor. And that's the reality of the day. The truth of the matter is that we as realtors really appreciate that. And the reason that we appreciated that is this. First of all, it's a great deal of information that makes our clients sharper and have a greater understanding of exactly how the market works, or not exactly how it works, but exactly where it is. And as a result of that, when we're showing property or we're going on listing appointments and sharing with people strategies, there's a whole lot more education behind what they're able to share with us. So the real estate world, or I should say real estate agents, aren't going anywhere anytime soon, in spite of all the new technology and in spite of all the apps and research that you can do. Because to this day, although we've tried to become as paperless as possible, let me show you what a typical file looks like for a transaction. Okay, that's probably small in comparison to some files. So the bottom line is that within those gobs of pages I just showed you, sorry, just got a call on the line here. I didn't quite see what it was. Within those pages is a lot of liability on your behalf as well. And you do need a professional, in my opinion, and in most realtors' opinion, obviously, to make sure that you're not victim to all that paperwork, because you do have, as a responsibility, some legal obligations when you're buying or selling a house. And it just astounds me that anyone would really try to sell their house nowadays without a realtor, because there's so many pitfalls, there's so much liability, I'm not saying it's impossible, and obviously, if you have some background in real estate, might be able to do it. But for the most part, things change all the time. Contracts change all the time. Laws change all the time. Liability changes all the time. Disclosure issues are changing all the time. So that's really why you need a realtor specifically to walk you through all that paperwork. And of course, as I've said before, you can expect to sign your name about 60 to 70 times. I don't know where I came up with 76, maybe 77, I don't know. But at least that amount of time on different contracts throughout a 30-day transaction. And we know the paperwork, we know what you're signing, but it's almost unfathomable that anybody would be able to comprehend that if they don't do that practically on a daily basis. So it is really important to use our services. Today, what I'd like to talk about, before I get started, please, like I said there, ask a question, get a free coffee bean card today. I'll take that off the air now. It gets a little obnoxious after a while. Oops, wrong one. Dude. Okay. Getting better. Anyway, today what I'd like to talk about is something actually a little different. I'd like to give you a case study. Well, it's not actually a case study, but this is an example of some of the questions I get out in the field sometimes, and I wanted to share one with you that I thought would be beneficial and important. It's a little generalized today, and before I get started, I want to emphasize that I'm not giving any legal advice today. I'm certainly not an attorney or have any legal background whatsoever, so I'm going to disclose that up front because I'm going to talk about something that trips upon maybe the fact that there's a legal interpretation here, and I don't want to do that. But I'm going to speak about it in general. Now, the case that I'm going to talk about today is, I had a client come up to me about a week ago, and she said, Stewart, I bought a house, and this house happened to be in West Hollywood. And after about a year, I found out that there was going to be a huge shopping development right around the corner, butting up against my house. And I'm really kind of frightened about it. I really don't know what to do. Should I sell? Should I just hang on to it and persevere through it? Most of my neighbors are also very concerned. We've actually gotten together to talk and decide if we want to take a stand on the development that's coming. I'm really kind of at a loss. Is it worth my time and effort to get involved in a process like that? And so, she was really pretty frustrated. Now, I wear two hats, so to speak, in the real world. I'm a realtor, but I also have been lucky enough to appointed to be a planning commissioner for the city of Manhattan Beach. So I more than sort of understand this process, and so I gave her some advice. And again, I'm not speaking as a commissioner, even though that's my title, because for a number of reasons, obviously it doesn't pertain to Manhattan Beach. But the process is pretty much the same across all municipalities. So again, speaking just in general and not speaking on an official basis at all. So what I told her was, there's a lot of things to take into consideration. The first thing to take into consideration is that if you are aware of it, and your neighbors are aware of it, if for any reason you decided to sell, you would have to disclose that to the people that might potentially buy your house. So the issue of hiding it or not being forthcoming is totally off the table. You absolutely need to tell anyone if that's happening in your neighborhood. The minute, if at the time you find out, you're in possession of that knowledge, and you would have to disclose it. Now, even if the project isn't in the development stage per se, that is, there's filings, at City Hall or things like that, you still have knowledge of the fact that it's progressing. You don't have to in any way provide how it is. You just have to basically tell somebody that it is. So it does become an issue. It becomes an issue for you in the perception of what your house is worth. And that's, the more important situation that you have to sort of figure out if in fact it's important to you or not. Obviously the price of your house is important, but how does it affect you? So what I said was, okay, understand the process. Number one, developers do have to take into consideration all the codes and regulations that are required for that specific parcel. So it behooves them, of course, to be as insightful as possible to make sure that they meet as many codes as possible. But if in fact they're lining up what they have to do versus what they want to do, obviously when they're going to apply and they want to make some kind of change, they incorporate that as well. So when you hear about development and you hear about their plans, the first order of responsibility for you is to find out exactly what they're doing. Rumors, innuendos, presupposed strategies and everything absolutely do you no good as a homeowner, because it takes you off course in terms of really what's going on. So it kind of is your responsibility to truck down to City Hall to see exactly what's going on, and get a better sense. Yes, all developers will try to alter codes and get variances, which I'll talk about in just a second, and make changes to the property irrespective of the codes. However, there's a process for that, and the process for that is not as controversial as you may think. The process for that basically is that they go in with a set of plans to the city, probably meeting a majority of the codes, and if there's anything really radical, they'll strategize with the city before they submit what we call formal plans. In other words, there's a lot of strategizing that goes on even before they present their plans and want to move forward. So the process takes a great deal of time, takes a great deal of energy on both the city's part and on the developer's part. Now, what tends to happen is that when people hear about what that process, or hear about that process, rumors get spread, inaccurate information is shared, and a lot of what I would call unnecessary energy is spent in areas that are just, non-productive. But nonetheless, it is important that if it's a representative group or of any sort, or an individual, that if you really want to know what's going on, the city should be telling you exactly, for the most part, what they have formally received in full transparency. Now, what happens, and this is the big question, what happens when, as you perceive whatever they've filed, it doesn't conform with the actual codes? And that happens quite often. And the reason that that's important, and that's sort of the rub for things, is that there are judgment calls that can be made by the city, as with any development, wherein there's something specific that they might allow, but you have the right to object to it. In other words, if they make an exception, and there's a whole criteria for that, it's not done easily. They have their own set of sophistication in terms of understanding what that particular item is, and they have to provide that to you, give you an explanation for it. And it's like I said before, it's a very long process that you can keep on top of. So then what happens is, if you're in disagreement with that, and for example, the city may allow for something that may not be exactly to code, you have the right to go to this planning commission in your town and make an issue of it. But here's, from my perspective, something that I think would save people a lot of time and energy in understanding what that means. If you, for example, have a group of people, or yourself individually, and you go down to your planning commission to present your case, a hearing, and by the way, the cities encourage you, if you don't agree with them, certainly they don't pretend to be the last avenue of complaint. They will, in fact, encourage you to go before another body of people that have an opinion and get a sense of whether they feel that you know you feel you have this ability to sort of discuss it in a public forum wherein everyone can see exactly what's going on. So that's the responsibility of staff. Staff has to give you, and obviously we provide the right to be able to what we call appeal any decision made by the city itself, that is city staff. It then goes before a planning commission like the one that I serve on. And here's again, the main point that I think people need to understand when it comes before a commission like that. Most commissions, in fact ours specifically, I know, obviously I serve on it, have to take into consideration the actual facts. In other words, if you go before a commission like that and you simply argue that you don't want it because you just don't want it for traffic reasons or parking reasons, that's fine. And that is something that the commission wants to hear. But what they also need to hear is exactly what those facts are. How can you back it up? Where is the discretion on behalf of the builder? Where is the conflict that you feel exactly goes against a code? Those are the things that a commission wants to hear, because a commission usually has to take into account that the developer has in fact met the criteria for most of all the codes. And if there's codes that are in question, there certainly can be a discussion about that. But 9 times out of 10, what will end up happening is that the commission and the working staff and the developer will take into account all of the public's opinion and then simply make alterations or changes. And then, of course, that then goes before the public again for their consideration, and the process is best served that way. So I guess what I'm saying, this gets very involved, and I hate to bore you, but I see so many times when people come before the commission where they feel that just their sort of sense of what's going on needs to be addressed, and they think they're just going to have the project eliminated in some way. And I just have to tell you that that's a perception that I think hurts more causes moving forward than anything else, because the commission is responsible also to the developer if the developer has met the criteria that the codes provide. Now, if you don't like the codes, then that's a whole different process I'm not going to get into now. But I think it's something that needs to sort of be out there and have an understanding of, because I think it would save a lot of headaches and a lot of unnecessary emotion. So I didn't mean to be as long-winded on this as I was, but I basically said to the person who's now selling their house and that is in that position, it is a tough decision for you to make. There is a chance that some people may view your property as having less value because of the size of the project that's next to you. But also, sometimes it pays just to see exactly what happens and how it works out in the long term. Because as, for example, although it may be something that procedurally seems like it's going to bring down the value because you're going to have everything torn down next to you, you're going to have the building going on for at least a year, maybe 2. None of that's attractive. But are you really moving out in the next couple of years? Are you really forced to move, within the period that all this is going to happen? And so you want to judge that. And then the other thing is that you actually want to take into consideration if what they're doing actually may increase your value. In other words, when projects are done, sometimes it can actually do the opposite of what your perception is. Neighborhoods change all the time, and they should be changing all the time, because they're meeting the needs of people that have a desire to make change. If the changes are affecting you in some way, obviously, as I said in this broadcast, you want to take attention to it, but also understand the circumstances upon which you're responsible and your group is responsible, because it does get very complicated. Okay, so that's it for today. I just a couple of no questions. Nobody gets a free coffee bean card today. One of these days, right? Put that up there once again. Um, I'm going to cut it off now. Wanted to mention once again about our app that allows you to take a picture of any house in America and gives you the value of that house right on your phone. It's really a terrific app. We're going to put the link for the app on the bottom of the broadcast after the broadcast is over on this particular page. This is our Fournier's page. And what that does is just just send us your email via that link, and we will send the program to download for free on your phone. And like I said again, it's a super comprehensive ability to get a snapshot of what's going on, not obviously just of that house, but also in the neighborhood. It'll give you the value of that house. It will also tell you the history of that sales on that house, some public information on the house, the square footage. I'm not even sure there's potentially a plot map on that somewhere. It'll give you a comparative analysis of that particular house. It'll tell you about the schools in the area, and it actually will also tell you about all the sales in the area within whatever parameters you create the map on, which is obviously just you putting your fingers on there and spreading it out. And also will give you open houses. So if you literally take a picture of any house in America, it will give you the history of that house plus all the houses around it. And in fact, the app also allows you just to punch in an address. You don't necessarily even have to take a picture of an address. If you punch in just the address itself, you'll get all the information about that house, that neighborhood, and everything connected to it. So it's really a terrific app, and we hope you download it. Okay, so we'll see you again. We do this every Tuesday. Please, if you have a subject you'd like me to cover, I'd be happy to do it. Go ahead and put us in the comments section, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Bye-bye, everybody.